welcome to your Scout Rack. You just got probably the coolest rack on the market, an all aluminum rack made right here in-house at Vanspeed. It is such a good rack. So I'm here today to help make this installation be a breeze for you guys. There are instructions listed online, but I have a feeling a lot of you aren't going to read them, so hopefully this video makes things a lot easier. All right, so let's go over what's going to be inside the box. You're going to get all your blades for both sides, so your 2 blades for your driver's side, 2 blades for the passenger side, all your 80/20 cross members, your whole front fairing section right here, light bar mounting ready to go. You're going to get your whole rear fairing section here, wings, all the installation hardware, your little dual sliders that are going to go down your rails to help mount all this stuff. So that's absolutely everything you're going to need to install this rack on top of your Sprinter van. Now let's go through the tools that you're going to need for the installation. You're going to need a 5/32 Allen, a 7/16 open wrench, and a 1/2-inch socket. And I recommend an extension because you're going to be using this to tighten down the rails. It's just going to make it a lot easier so you don't bust your knuckles on there. So get an extension. Hey, a little pro tip here. When you're putting the Allen screws into the 80/20, use a little dab of blue Loctite. A little bit goes a long way. Let's keep it tight. So let's be careful up on the roof of your van. Let's have someone help holding the ladder when you're climbing up and down. Let's make sure we're using our PPE. Just keeping things nice and tight. We want to be safe while doing this installation, okay? All right, I want to introduce you to our good friend, partner of Vanspeed and VanMart. It's Dimitri from Surge Supply, and he is going to be the first recipient of the brand new Scout Rack. We've had a prototype for a while now, but he came down from Northern California to get the real deal, the finished product on the top of his personal van. We are so stoked for that. Thank you for coming down, Dimitri.
My pleasure. Very excited.
Okay, we are going to get some moving blankets and get him up on the roof of his van because we don't want to jack up his new show van right here. So let's get up there and protect that roof.
Let's do it.
All right, so I'm gonna climb up here and get a moving blanket spread around just so we have somewhere safe for our tools. We're not scratching up the top of our van. Hopefully you have roof rails because you need them to install pretty much any rack. So if you don't have roof rails, go get some and then get a Scout Rack. Okay, so the first step is gonna be getting the dual sliders and starting either the front or the back of your roof rail and just slipping them all down. Dimitri does have a Vanspeed side ladder on his van already, but the Scout Rack is clearance to pretty much have plenty of room for any side ladder out there. So if it is a problem, we might have to remove it, but I think we're gonna be okay. Next step, after you get your sliders down the roof rails, you're gonna put on the front left blade. So line this sucker up and put a washer and a nut on these, but you're gonna leave it nice and loose because we got some moving to do and we got some other stuff that's got to go on. All right, so got Dimitri on the roof of his own van. So if he gets any dents, it's not my fault. He's gonna put the front right blade on with 2 nylocks and the 2 washers. No need for Loctite here. The nylocks are gonna hold no problem. So save the Loctite for later. All right, so for step 3, it's installing 2 pieces of 80/20 onto the front blades. In Dimitri's case, he's got a max span right here. So I'm pretty sure the rear 80/20 is gonna fall right in a perfect spot where these holes are. But for the front one, we might need to use the slots that are available to slide your 80/20 anywhere you want. We can get the rear one in and we can move back to that later once we get the rails in their like fixed location of where they're gonna be. So this is where your blue Loctite's gonna come in handy. These vans vibrate a lot, so these will fall out if you do not use Loctite. So use a little bit sparingly, don't need a whole bunch. A dot on each bolt will be fine. And you're gonna use a washer as well when you put the 1/4-20s into the blade and 80/20 hardware. All right, you can get 2. All right, so we're gonna put the second one on. It does land right where Dimitri's span is, so we're gonna use the slot that's right here. It's meant for your 80/20, so you can literally accommodate any situation you have going on the roof of your van. Okay, so step 4 is installing the 2 rear blades. You can tell which one goes on which side because the Vanspeed logo is going to be at the back of the van. So same as the front, we're going to be using the twin sliders, and we're going to do one up in the front and one towards the rear. All right, so we got all 4 of the roof rails loosely mocked up on the roof of the van. We are going to put 2 more pieces of 80/20 on the rear section. Dimitri's got a pneumatic air conditioner up here. Takes up a lot of space, so we're gonna have to use these slots on both pieces of his 80/20. But again, that's what they're there for, so we're gonna use them. All right, so the next step is gonna get these joining plates right here, and we're gonna be joining the 2 blades together using the 1/4 20 button heads, and you're gonna do a washer on both sides, and then your nylock. Hey, now that we got the 2 plates on here, I'm gonna go through and just get them not snug, just tightened up so they're not so sloppy, because we're still gonna have to adjust the rack a little bit when we get it completed. All right, so for this next step, we're gonna be installing these side wings on the rear fairing, and for that, you're gonna need the 2 wings, and you're gonna need these countersunk Allens, 7/16, and your 5/32 wrench. All right, so we're gonna get our left wing here, line it up with these 2 holes, and do not forget your washer on the inside. Then we're just gonna repeat the same steps on the other side. So your 2 Allens, 2 washers, and the 2 nuts. So for this hardware here, I'm not going to use any Loctite because it's a nylock. They're going to stay tight. The Loctite's going to come more into play when you're doing the small 1/4 20s into the 80/20 aluminum hardware. And for these, you can go ahead and tighten these up all the way. Okay. So there is your rear fairing section. And now we're going to move on to step 8, which is going to be dropping the 1/4 20s down inside these 4 holes and attaching the T-slot nuts. Okay, now that we have the rear fairing, the wings are on there, we're going to get these T-slot nuts, and we're going to drop a 1/4 20 Allen down each one of these holes and attach these loosely. So if you take a look at them, they have a concave side and they have like a punch side right here. Let's do it so the concave side is facing up. Just going to make it a lot easier to get the bolt started. So get your 1/4 20 and a washer, drop it down. And again, just leave these nice and loose because we're going to be sliding a piece of 80/20 through here. All right, so for this step right here, we're going to be sliding the 80/20 through these T-slots. It can definitely help to have a friend come help you with this one because we're going to try to hold this thing upright, and it can be a little tight depending on how the bend came out and whatnot. So I'm going to hold it, and Dimitri is going to slip the piece of extruded aluminum on through and try to get it all lined up with those T-slots. So just like the rear fairing, we're gonna do the exact same thing to the front fairing. We're just gonna prep it here on the ground to make the install way easier. So again, the T-slot nuts, your quarter 20s, and a washer through the 4 holes, and then we'll do the same thing where we slide the 80/20 on through. Now you're roping your buddy again so he can help you slip the 80/20 on through. Okay, so in this step, we're gonna continue just putting things together on the ground here, just so we're not fumbling around up on the roof. And for that, it's gonna be the front fairing section and these 2 side plates right here, okay? So 2 side plates, your countersunk hardware. You're gonna have 3 on each side, so we'll get started with that. Carefully flip it over. Slip a washer on there. And an eye lock. All right, so there it is. There is your badass front wind fairing right there. Now we're gonna hop back up on the van and get all this stuff installed. All right, so for this step, we're gonna get our whole assembled rear section, and we're gonna use the 2 quarter 20s on each side, and it's gonna go through the 80/20 that is attached to the rear fairing. Don't forget your blue Loctite. So everything throughout the build is just being left, like, just not tight, because there's gonna be some shimmying that's gonna have to go along and straightening out to get the blades lined up, you know, driver side, passenger side, and forward and back and everything. So we're just getting everything in place, and then we're gonna go through and we'll zap everything down once it's all assembled. So now we're gonna get a quarter 20, a washer, a nylock, sorry, 2 washers and a nylock, and we're gonna go through this 3rd spot right here that will kind of bind everything together. All right, so for this step, we're gonna basically do the exact same thing we did on the rear fairing section, but now we're on the front, and we're gonna get the 2 quarter 20s with a washer, a little bit of blue Loctite, and we are gonna thread those into the 80/20. I'm gonna go ahead and get these things like, not super snug, but again, just tightened up a little bit. All right, so after you get the 2 countersunk bolts in this front part of the fairing right here, there's 2 more right where Dimitri's hand is right there on the top part of the blade, where you're gonna put 2 more countersunk bolts, washers, and eye locks. All right, so our front fairing is fully tightened up. The rear fairing's fully tightened up, and we have enough of these pieces of 80/20 cross members tightened that we can align the rack forward and back and get the 2 pieces together where the reveal's nice, and just go through and snug everything down. And that is it, your Scout Rack is complete.